Hello and welcome to How to Citizen Season 2, Chapter 3.
Wow.
Chapter 3 is titled How the State Government Works.
How?
How? That's the question.
That's the question.
That's the
That we are
question.
going to
And
find
for
out.
this episode, we have an actual person who is dealing with this question quite intricately recently.
I don't know if intricately is the right word.
I guess she's trying.
He's trying.
The name of our guest today is Priyanka Chaturvedi. She is a Rajya Sabha member of parliament from Shiv Sena. And if you know what has been happening with the Shiv Sena, you will realize what I mean when this chapter gave her some existential questions.
Absolutely. I mean, this will raise questions like, what is Shiv Sena? What is the role of the state? Who are you? Who am I? And we'll answer all those questions in this episode comprehensively.
And she will too. Enjoy this episode. Hello and welcome to episode 3 of How to Citizen. And what did we do in episode 2, Shreyas?
Episode 2, we really went through many important points. We realized what's what and what's true and what's false. And I really feel enlightened after episode 2.
Episode 2, yeah.
Glad to be here on episode 3. Wouldn't be here without episode 2.
Yeah.
Gotta say that.
And we have a very, very special guest for even this episode. This season is it's turning out to be a treat for you. I know this. Hello, Priyanka.
Hello.
Hi. Priyanka Chaturvedi is with us. She's a member of parliament in Rajya Sabha, which is crazy.
Why would you even say that? I thought you'd feel happy about it.
I am very happy. I told you, right? So, Priyanka Chaturvedi, if you don't know her, she came into limelight, if I may say, through her tweets, and then she went on debate channels. Then she switched parties in the middle, and then now she's a Rajya Sabha MP. So, chandi ho gayi aapki to.
You are on debate channel, so you work in the entertainment field also.
No, if you would look at news debates as entertainment, which I call them, newstainment.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know, that's the Balajification of news.
Yeah.
So how content has changed over the years, the same way news has changed, and perhaps you can look at us as entertainers too.
Yeah. Do you enjoy it though?
At some point, I started to get... I started to like the entire medium to be able to slam everyone and
Yeah.
then your videos used to go viral, etc. But after some time, you do realize that, ho gaya. Yeah, I mean, this phase is done.
Correct.
But it's very interesting. So I was just telling a story earlier, which I will repeat here, Priyanka. So I used to work with Tathagat Satpathy earlier, right? So we were just chilling in the hall one time, and watching debate, right? And you were there. Right. We were outraging about something. Some topic was happening and we could see that you were also trying to make points. And obviously you
Which
were
was
not
most
allowed
of the
to.
time.
Yeah. Which you were not allowed to. So I was like, so we were talking about something like a data point that we had just found in our research. And I was like, I should send it to her. And he's like, what do you mean send it to her? I said, I will tweet it to her and there is a chance she might use it. So I literally just tweeted to her.
Wow.
And she actually used it.
Wow.
I was like,
Yeah, I'm pretty prompt that way.
Yeah.
I keep my channels of communication on even when I'm debating, so that if anyone can come up with an interesting point, I can raise it whenever I get the chance.
So you're telling me while you're on the debate, you can also read the trolls in real time and you still manage to just keep
I ignore the trolls
Oh.
because... but you also get to know how much you're pissing them off, right? I'm sorry to use the word, but
is that a measure of success of your points? Like depending on how much?
yeah, if you are getting them to outrage, means you have said something
Correct.
which goes against their belief.
Correct.
Right? So you force them to kind of react to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that used to give me a lot of joy.
Yeah.
That purpose, that, oh God, good, I've slammed them and good, the video is going viral. So that is why channels of communication are always open so that I can get something to hit back at them.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
amazing.
it became, at one point, it became like that IPL T20, who finishes last with a sixer in the end, like that 2 seconds, 20 seconds.
Yeah.
So yes, it is interesting.
But then how do you verify the information whether that's correct? Do you fact check what's happening?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a reader myself, and
Right.
there are times when I forget a particular point, and like somebody's reminded me of it, and I'm like, yes, absolutely, this is something I did not raise.
Right.
Let me just raise this.
Correct.
But I've always gone into a debate prepared with information, with facts in place. I don't mess around with facts.
Yeah.
I'll never do that. Even if it kind of affects my videos not getting viral, but I rather speak facts. So
I
I,
feel-
always go prepared.
I have to say that's a controversial statement that you're on the side of facts. That is, wow. Okay.
That's why in minority these days.
Oh, that's a nice. That's a nice.
But listen, I wanna let's dial it back to you being in school, to you being in 7th grade. Were you a debater in school also? Like, has
Not
this always
at
been?
all. Actually, if you would ask anybody from my school, my former schoolmates, they perhaps wouldn't even know me.
Oh, wow.
Yes, because I was a very quiet child. I was a very non-controversial. I would speak very little. I would only concentrate on getting my exams done and over with.
Right.
So that was how I was. Very
Yeah.
few friends.
Mm-hmm.
Would not have a social life per se. Very
Right.
introvert, shy, I would say. A private person.
Right.
So I'm sure many of my schoolmates, if you would meet them, they were like, "हाँ प्रियंका को अब तो सुना है पर स्कूल क्या याद नहीं."
So they were very shook when you became a member of
I
parliament.
am certain. I'm sure my principal also was very shook. ये कहाँ से आ गई?
Her? What?
What?
But where did you do your schooling?
At Juhu in Mumbai.
Okay.
I'm a Mumbai person, so I studied in a school which was hop, skip and jump from home.
Okay.
I used to just cross the road and the school was there.
Oh, that's nice.
Yes, so it's St. Joseph's at Juhu.
Lunch sorted.
Totally. So the tiffin, everybody, all the school friends would only know me because of the tiffin that used to come from home. Kyunki garam hota tha.
Exactly. like a dabba wala not needed. But yeah, so in 7th grade, so tell me, you read this chapter.
Yeah, I read it.
Wow.
Yes.
So I sent this. Sakshi
But no,
sent
I
this
have to
chapter.
tell you about my commitment. As
Yes.
soon as he said that
Yes.
civics chapter, blah, 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 CBSE, so I told my office that, listen, get the PDF or get the textbook. I want to read it. So I've read the chapter 1 to 9, but I can't tell you the sequence, okay? I don't know.
Wow.
But I read it. I don't know kaun sa chapter hoga. Ye quiz competition now, and I don't make a.
Are you serious? That
That
is
is So I have all the
incredible.
chapters.
I've
Listen, she's an MP. She has people like me working for her now. So
So they did organize all the chapters for me. So, but if you were to ask me what were the chapters, no, I've done some kind of skimming around and figured what it is.
Exactly. Because I texted her that I sent her a chapter on WhatsApp also.
Right.
She's like, I've already read it. I'm like, ek ghante mein? What is happening? Yes. But yeah, what were your overall impressions about this chapter? What did you think?
I was like, this is so relatable because a lot of things have happened in Maharashtra right now
Yeah.
where opposition is now in the government is now in the opposition.
Yeah.
And it's hardly been a month or so. So it's just very relatable. And I'm sure if any student of civics at this point in time, 7th grade student would be looking at Maharashtra, would totally be confused and
Oh,
flunk
for
their
sure.
exams.
Yeah,
You know? So I just hope they were keeping themselves away from
Right.
Right.
what happened in Maharashtra.
So, you know, the funny thing is a lot of our earlier viewers and now the new viewers, I know you are there, are school kids, right?
Oh,
Who actually,
interesting.
so it's very interesting. We got feedback from season 1 that parents were making their kids listen to How to Citizen for civics. It's
That's
like, तुमको
nice.
preparation करना है तो इसी से कर लो.
Like
types,
my
you know.
daughter had her birthday recently, and her friends came and told me that Auntie, we troll her every time there's a civics chapter happening because we tell her your mom is doing things like this. Okay, so my daughter just hates it.
So I think your daughter will also watch this. So hi, what's her name?
Anitra.
Hi Anitra, you will enjoy this a lot. I'm pretty sure.
Your friends even more so they'll have more jokes. Just wait.
But interesting, no? Like how the civics chapter is so sanitized and so woke, I would say, right?
No, if it was woke, it would have prepared the children for what's happening in today's current circumstances.
I wonder about that though, because in classrooms, I often wonder, like, we are reading this right now, we are aware of the news and everything. Do kids discuss this in classrooms with their teachers?
So, you know, when I was studying, our civics used to be one of the driest subjects that we had. It was hardly discussed.
Yes.
There was hardly any discussion, debate, or trying to understand the nuances of how governance works. So, you know a lot about political parties, you know who's the chief minister,
Right.
which political party is in the government right now. But you do not really discuss the nuances. And I'm just hoping that, for example, for my daughter, civics is a very interesting subject. For my son, it was very interesting. But sometimes I wonder if is it because I am in politics and they see this firsthand.
Right.
So I would say I just hope that there are children who are understanding the nuances of
Right.
civics and the importance of this particular subject.
Correct.
That's what I was wondering. Even when we did episode 1 with Omar, it was interesting because when we went to Kashmir and when we spoke to him about this, it was a chapter on equality. right? And we were reading sentences which just had like this blank look on his face. Like we read this one sentence about, I think, voting, about how everybody is allowed to vote and, you know, like there is no caste, creed, race, whatever. He just looked at us and he was like, really? Really?
And can you imagine, Rajya Sabha is supposed to be a council of state.
Yes.
And you do not have anybody representing Jammu and Kashmir right now.
Yeah.
It is just such an unfortunate thing.
Yeah.
It is an important state. You all have given it all the importance, all the politics around it. And you don't have a voice in the Rajya Sabha.
Yeah.
So I think these are, when you talk about equality and you talk about council of states and the relevance of, Rajya Sabha, you need to also let the children know that this is also
Absolutely. And it's very important because the chapter we chose for Priyanka was perfect, as she says. It's called the how the state government works. And we are recording this 8th of September.
8th September.
Yes. And a month ago, 2 months ago, there was chaos in Maharashtra, as we all
You
know.
think it should be renamed how the state government doesn't work?
Don't get into that.
Let's not get into that, yeah. But let me just read out the first bit of the chapter first. So the chapter is called How the State Government Works. Last year we discussed the fact that government works at 3 levels, local, state and national, and looked at the work of local government in some detail. So civics, we did season 1 with with 8th grade. Okay, this is 7th grade. We are regressing as society regresses. We are also regressing. So in the 6th grade, they talked about local government. It's interesting, right? You know, like 6th standard में तुमको local government के बारे में बताएंगे, यहाँ पे state government. And in the 8th standard one, there is a how does the parliament work?
Right.
So it's like an escalating thing.
Correct.
Right? In this chapter, we examine the work of the government and at the state level. How does this take place in a democracy? What is the role of a member of Legislative Assembly, MLA, and ministers? How do people express their views or demand action from government? We look at all these questions through the example of health. I wanted to ask you this question. How do people express their views or demand action from government?
Okay, that was a tough one. That was Ruby. And how do I answer this without...
We are in the introduction of the chapter. We haven't even begun.
No, I think a lot of accountability comes through governance. That is how ideally the world should be and how we should expect people to function. But unfortunately, that has got a bit muddled because you have a lot of politics playing behind it. We are seeing more and more increasingly that a lot of work functioning does not, when even an MLA who becomes a minister goes on to become a minister, is left defending the government rather than having to be accountable for the ministerial role that is given to them.
Right.
The second biggest challenge is we have seen this, at least I see it in the Rajya Sabha during the question hour. That is when you get to answer, get answers from the ministers. They do not come prepared. And the only answer that they have, if I may say so without upsetting your listeners, Jai Ho Modi ji. You know, 2014 के बाद से अमृतकाल शुरू हो गया है.
Right.
So I think that should be the first step. The questioner should be totally something which holds the government to account. Every single minister who's sitting in the cabinet should be able to prove why he's there and for what reason he's being made there. And you see such instances where people lose interest in, politics or government as such. And they lose that focus. So I think, that is where we are starting to lose that idea of accountability.
You know, I learned this the hard way though, because when I went to Delhi in 2011, I started working with a MP who was with the UPA. And they were in power, right? And there was this constant demand from the opposition that you should do a debate on farmer suicides, right? Back then. And Sharad Pawar ji was the agriculture minister. I was working with an MP who worked with him. He was a Rajya Sabha member as well. It was interesting because he had to defend the government, right? When he was speaking there, like, defend in the sense he was not trying to belittle the problem.
Yes.
But at the same time, he also has to express his loyalty to his party. And I spent, I think, a week trying to come up with arguments about how, you can actually explain away the farmer suicide, which is a very tragic problem and it still exists, right? So we came up with this game plan of, oh no, it's not just the agriculture ministry's problem. It's actually a societal problem. It's also a problem of the electricity department and so many things, the governance problem. Deflecting, but we had to put in a lot of work to deflect, right? Funnily enough, when the debate was actually happening and he was reading out the speech, he started reading it and then suddenly he was like, I don't need to do this. I will just say no, Sharad Pawar ji has done great job, he's done great work here, etc., etc., which is what is happening constantly now, right? I don't think they need to prepare anymore.
Totally understand the idea of defending. So it's not like farmer suicides is not a societal issue also, right? And there could be some policy loopholes. I totally get that. But here the idea of deflection also, I understand that would be part of their speech. But also making yourself answerable. That yes, maybe there are some loopholes.
Yes.
And maybe because you're in opposition, you have some better ideas. We're willing to listen to it. The idea of democracy is not just about my way or the highway.
Correct.
The idea is that if it is not working on ground, how can we do this better? Right? And that is when accountability. When we talk about accountability, you're not just accusing the government. You are saying, hello, this is what is going wrong as part of your policy. Let's talk about what we can do better.
Precisely.
You know, that I would say is accountability. And transparency comes in when the government accepts, okay, so we thought this would be a great idea, but it hasn't worked out. And this is how it has panned out.
Right.
These were our initiatives, probably not met with success. And instead of making everything political, some issues should be kept above politics. For example, I'm someone who's very passionate about gender justice. So I always keep it above my politics. So let's speak up. Let's make this about societal transformation.
Yeah.
So I think, that is something which we should...
I did see that you brought up a debate about conditions for adolescent girls and education very recently also, a few months ago.
Yeah.
And we are checking stats and it was actually mind-blowing. The national number of debates that people participate in is 41.7. For you, it's 129.
Oh, you've seen my parliamentary record?
Yeah, of course.
Finally someone has. Because I keep getting these trolls. What is your contribution in the parliament? I'm like, boss, someone
3
make that
times the national
little effort
average.
to understand what my contribution is.
Yeah.
Some people ask me, what is your contribution towards your, MPLAD funds, etc. Please, I'll be happy to give you a tour of what I have done, my sense of commitment. Listen, I must say this. People who come from, I've come from someone who's a totally non-political person. I came, like he initially said, from Twitter to whatever, getting very active on as far as civil society issues were concerned. And here I am. So I do understand that there are very few people who raise voices of the citizens here, and that should be my job. There are very few people who will go above their politics, even in spending their MP-led funds. We do that. And thankfully, I'm in a party which believes in that. So that is also equally important. They don't tell me that go defend us XYZ.
Yeah.
They tell me get the work done. That should be your priority.
Yeah.
So I think that's good.
Wait, which party are you in again?
I'm in Shiv Sena.
How many Shiv Senas do we have now? I don't understand.
So we have
come there. We'll go there.
One Shiv Sena, and we have one who's masquerading as Shiv Sena.
Right.
Will finally introduce themselves as Chota BJP. So let me tell you that.
Priyanka will go there eventually. Okay.
Let's concentrate on civics.
I just have one more quick question. What is the process? How do you decide what to raise? Which debate to raise, which issue to raise? Like, are you listening to the people? Do you have an open forum where people offer, or is there like a party whip or a leader who tells you? How does it work?
You know, the fantastic part about my party is, as far as the parliamentary debates are concerned, or parliament is concerned, they tell me that, so obviously we get a list of business that comes from the centre after deliberations. And they tell me that whatever stance you take, we know that it's a well-studied stance, and that will be the party stance.
Can you pause here? I just want to explain what the thing is. It's a very interesting thing also. So the government basically does these things called the Business Advisory Committee, right? Which is essentially all parties assemble in this committee and with the speaker, and then they decide what is going to be the agenda for next week, right? And then the list comes to all parties that this is what we are doing. They allocate time to it. Right. So like 2 hours we will allocate to a debate, 2 hours we'll allocate to legislative business for this particular bill. This is what is coming. Right. So it is supposed to give you some preparation time also in a way. But again, it's debatable whether that happens anymore, because the government sometimes brings in bills very suddenly. So there is very less time to prepare. So that is what she's talking about when she says list of business. Right. She gets it from the Business Advisory Committee, and then you come up.
And sometimes there's a revised list of business. So at post 2 p.m. we are handed over this revised. So we have a lunch break between 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. So when you come back at 2 p.m, there's a total change in the list of business.
Oh. Yeah.
Yeah. So they called it, we've changed the order of introducing a particular bill. and you're going to be speaking on that. So sometimes there's a very little duration also.
Why does that happen? Like why? the
Because
revision?
government has suddenly prioritized that this bill has to be cleared. So probably opposition is going to react to it. They're going to oppose it. They're going to be, coming to the well of the house or
Right.
raising opposition about it. And we have to get it to pass.
Right.
yeah.
So they've done it, like juvenile justice bill, which I was so keen to speak on because there are definite loopholes in it. But because the government was in a hurry, they did not want any discussion on it. There was opposition happening. Within 8 minutes, it was cleared.
8 minutes.
8 minutes, Juvenile Justice Bill Amendment Act was cleared.
Wow.
So that kind of impacts me as someone who is representing in the upper house of the parliament, which is supposed to be a serious place for discussion. It does have an impact. In fact, I wrote a letter post the bill was passed that these are the serious loopholes and you should. I still don't have a response to that. So those are things which I feel we could, in terms of accountability, because we started with that and we're still stuck here,
Right.
we could do better.
Yeah.
Hear the opposition out. You may not agree with them. You may not want to do this, but hear them out.
Right.
Or maybe, in UK, because I've been debating about this, when you ask me what points you raise, I'm very open to people. Sometimes when I see what's happening on Twitter, if there is something which is coming up on Twitter, for example, the bully by Sully deals.
Yes.
Yeah.
I saw nobody was speaking up for them. Of course, this was
Right.
people who were outraged, sensible people who were outraged, who believe in law and order, who believe that justice should be done against such
Correct.
issues. But nobody was taking this up seriously. I was like, this can't be happening in my nation.
Yeah.
When we are talking about Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, and we are talking about unity, equality, etc., etc. I raised it with the Mumbai police. I said, if Delhi police can't do this, we have to do this. We got cracking. We got those guys behind bars within 48 hours.
Oh wow.
So if there is a will,
There is
if
a
there
will.
is something that you want to do, and you see the legislative, executive all come together to do that, I think that is the big win for the citizens of the country. So those are things that I see, and I'm very open. My office is very open. If someone wants to come and speak to us, we do that. We raise their issues. For example, the senior citizens, they are under huge pressure. Expenses are increasing, interest rates are decreasing.
Yeah.
I hope the kids are, whoever is listening into you would understand that. For anyone who has retired, and their pension, if you look at the pension interest that they're getting, has come
Absolutely.
down so much.
Absolutely.
Bank interest has come down so much.
Right.
So there's taxes on your shareholding,
Yeah.
there's taxes on your mutual fund investments.
Correct.
How does a retired person make their living?
No, and like we are, I would say I am in that age group right now, which my friends, their parents are retiring, right? And they're all facing this problem,
yes.
right? And like inflation will affect a lot of people who have like a stable income, right? I mean, like there is no growth possibility. There is no there is no increment happening. Pensioners are the first one to get hit by this, right? And one interesting thing that she said I would like to point out was the Juvenile Justice Bill. When you wrote a letter, she didn't even get a response, and now even member of parliament is not getting a response on these points. What can this question, which is how do people express their views and demand action from the government?
MPs can't do that.
MPs can't do that. But so there is this very interesting comic which is there. We're not going to do a reading of it, but I think it's very interesting. Shreyas, do you want to describe it?
Yeah, so it's basically a comic that talks about whose responsibility it is. There are water related problems happening where people are falling sick, where there is water shortage, and there is an opposition leader who's here and who is trying to incite the people. But I do see that there is also distrust amongst the people that, oh, he's the opposition leader, why should we listen to him?
The whole thing is that the MLA is absent.
Correct.
And not responding to the people. So there is an opposition leader who comes in the
in.
scene and quote unquote incites. I would still not call it incitement. It's a loaded term. I would say, especially now. So he's basically saying that, oh, this guy is not there when you're in trouble, etc., which will help him in elections later. It's fascinating how the whose responsibility is what is what. And the first comic is about how useless the MLA is. I wanted to sort of talk to you about a little bit about your MP experience as an MP also, right? Now, MLAs are obviously elected according to a state, and
Correct.
they have like a particular constituency to look after. You're a Rajya Sabha MP, right? You don't have a constituency. you represent Maharashtra as a whole, let's put it that way. How are you dealing with it? Is it problematic? Does it like take your attention away from a lot of things? How do you do it?
No, actually, let me clarify. Yes, Rajya Sabha MPs represent a state. They are elected by their MLAs and they're sent to represent their state. But they do need to identify their constituency, that
Yes.
where their MPLAD funds. So there are nodal agencies.
Right.
So if you're getting your MPLAD funds, which was again for 2 years that I became an MP, was denied to us. So I used a lot of CSR cooperation, a lot of work through local government, state government to kind of help me do the kind of things I was doing, especially during COVID. I came at a time.
Priyanka, if you can also explain what an MPLAD fund is, because
Yes.
your daughter is also watching.
Yes, she knows it all. but I must share. MPLAD funds is an X amount of money given to a member of parliament, irrespective of Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha, to spend in their constituency.
It's 5
So
crore
it's
a year?
about 5 crores.
5
yes.
crores a
5
year,
crores annually is given to us. If you divide that into 12 months also, you'd realize that it's a laughable amount.
Yes.
And a member of parliament, if it's a Lok Sabha member of parliament, they have 6 assemblies under them. Must understand 6 assemblies.
Yeah.
And each assembly has more than, I would say, 10 lakh population.
Yeah.
Easily.
Yeah,
That
Easily.
figure is nothing. then.
So the figure really is nothing, but they are members of parliament are usually accused of misappropriating funds, which I would say if there's anyone intending to do that is incorrect. But largely I have seen that more or less members of parliament go by the MLA's suggestions, the assembly suggestions, and have to divide that funds equally so that no one feels that they haven't got enough.
Correct.
It's a bit ridiculous also, right? You know,
Yes.
because like I remember this was such a big problem with my MP also when I was working with him, that his village, his constituency had like around 2,000 villages.
Yeah.
Right, and he had 5 crore rupees to spend on the thingy. People would get upset, man.
Huh.
Like, how much do you spread it, right? So if you say spend like a crore building building like a community center in one particular year, then you have 4 crores left. But the other villages which are also in his constituency, they get very upset.
Understandably.
Yeah, they're like, what have we done to not deserve this
No,
money?
but we have to also understand, most of the legislative assembly members also have a fund.
Yes.
So a member of parliament can kind of additionally put in some funds to
Right.
these assemblies.
Right.
And for him, there are 6 assemblies. This is Lok Sabha. Now for Rajya Sabha, I have a lot more leeway. So wherever the MLAs or the particular representative, if it happens to be from my party or
Right.
whichever party, has already managed to, ensure that the community center, let's say a community center, for example, has come up in the area, or a small school has been rebuilt as per the requirements of the citizens, then I may not need to spend my funds.
Sure.
Then I'll look at a toilet block somewhere,
Correct.
or something for the girls, or something for the local societies like the gardens, etc.
Right.
I look at that. For example, I've recently done a big project which was, I got a lot of flack for it from the local MLA because he happens to be from a different political party. But I felt that it was the need of the hour. Citizens were getting disturbed, troubled, and this needed to be done. There was some inconvenience involved with the road. And now when I go there was a lot of opposition. There were just articles written against me, against that project. But when I went there recently, we just opened it up, that particular road. They tell me, aapne road nahi, highway bana dala hai.
Right.
So the people need to, understand that there are some members of parliament who genuinely want to do some great work.
What percentage do you think are people who are doing it genuinely? I know that's a very broad, subjective question.
I would
but-
say, a lot of members of parliament are doing this, and they work 24/7, 365. But yes, they do. I mean, I would say a handful of them are exceptions, but a lot of them are totally committed. Now we're seeing that even in the Rajya Sabha. Rajya Sabha, earlier you used to see people who have gotten because they fit into a caste equation or a equation which suits a political party. But now they are also becoming very conscious about the constituency and being able to answer to their state governments. And I guess that comes a lot from social media being very active, they're catching on to whatever work you're doing.
Right.
So there is this sense of, where citizens hold you accountable. But that accountability factor is, as at this point in time, more of a blame game. Tumse to kuch hi nahi hota hai.
Yeah.
I have this feeling someday someday it will reach to a point चलो मिलकर करते हैं.
Right.
And at a point that चलो साथ में मिलकर काम होता है.
Correct.
You know, irrespective of a politics.
Correct.
So, but again, that's a work in progress.
But you do have hope that like we will reach there in our
Yes,
lifetimes.
I think once the deficit of trust that we see between civil society and members, and that if you remember when we was talking at the beginning of our conversation about having a chip on your shoulder.
Yes.
You know, some people coming and thinking that they're God's gift to mankind.
Correct.
I want
That
to...
is breaking down
Sorry,
quite a bit.
I want to interrupt you because that was off camera. So I would like to repeat the
Yes.
conversation because the people will be lost. So what I was telling her was that because it seems like we know each other for a while now because we have interacted on Twitter and we have been... And then as I said, she became MP and then I was like, iski to chandi ho gayi. So, but the interesting thing is that she doesn't have a chip on her shoulder. Like the way you are talking right now as well. I don't feel scared to ask questions to you. I mean, I usually don't feel scared asking
No,
questions.
it's
but
we who are scared answering such questions. कभी हमारी भी पूछ लिया करो. It's not a chandi moment all the time.
But there is this, so for example, I'll give you an example of, again, Omar, right? So, Omar के साथ हमने gimmick plan किया था, okay? So, we were discussing कि, first episode है हमारा, we have Omar Abdullah and we are in Kashmir. So, to put him at ease, because I have never met him. He's an ex-chief minister. He has been in politics for years. So, I was like, chip on the shoulder, maybe hoga. So we have to sort of put him at ease, right? So we were like, we should do this gimmick where we are like, we started this conversation and I said, hello Omar. And he's like, can I call you that? Can I call you Omar? Or should I say Omar Ji, Omar Abdullah Ji? And he's like, what else will you call me? I'm like, नहीं तुम्हारे कोई sycophants होंगे जो आएंगे हमारे पीछे कि Omar कैसे बोल दिया. That is the chip on the shoulder
No, but
thing.
I must share this thing about Omar also. When I got onto Twitter, he was one of the coolest chief ministers on Twitter who used to talk about anything but politics. And that is how I saw Twitter.
Yeah.
That, and there were no barriers. There was direct communication.
Right.
And he was, he was amongst those first politicians, and I always used to hold him in high regard, etc. I was someone in Mumbai who used to look at him on television. No, I was not in politics.
Right.
And suddenly you see Omar just having fun, responding to you.
Yeah.
Correct.
And that kind of interested me. I was like, no, they're not all so bad or having a chip on the shoulder. Same with Dr. Tharoor. Dr. Tharoor was very, very popular on Twitter. Both of them were very popular on Twitter. And the good part about them at that point, but unfortunately everything is reduced to politics now. We cannot have those conversations anymore on social media. But there was a time when we used to have real good fun on social media, especially on Twitter.
Right.
So
do you still do that though? Like, do you respond to people? Do you have fun, or are you like now bound by certain things?
I do. I get tempted to respond to few things, like if you've seen a movie or if you like particular fashion or a handbag. Handbags are very controversial.
Yeah.
Recent
I
controversy.
guess. Okay.
What are you carrying?
No,
Can
no,
we do
no. They've all seen it. I've been carrying the same LV for the last 3 years, so it's okay. It's not a controversy. But I sometimes feel tempted to talk, but then I pull back. I'm like, I'll unnecessarily get trolled. Unnecessarily, it will be like, people also need to understand that you can contribute to the society while having a Louis Vuitton bag with you. It's not like your bag dictates your sense of priority.
Correct.
Really.
Correct.
So those should really be no controversies.
Yeah.
How to citizen friends, if you feel like Priyanka should stop censoring herself and be chill on Twitter, please leave a comment. And uska handle bhi aa jayega yahan pe. Just tweet to her and tell her it's okay. It's okay.
And Louis Vuitton, if you are interested in sponsoring the podcast, we are fully open. Hit us
I'm
up.
sure they'd hate me saying this. They might get trolled.
Which is a great point to take a break because this is where the sponsor actually comes in. So take a break.
Hey, it's been a special week for the IVM Podcast Network as we turn 8 this year. Listeners, thank you for being with us on this wonderful journey. Presenting to you, Club Cyrus Says, the premium tier offerings for our podcast. Club members will get exclusive Cock and Bull episodes every Monday, extended and unfiltered versions of the guest episodes, access to the Club Cyrus Says Discord server, and audio offerings such as ad-free episodes and early access to guest episodes. Also, members get to decide the topics of live episodes and get their name on the producer's slate at the end credits. On The Wire Talks, Siddharth talks to former BBC journalist Satish Jacob about the latest income tax raid conducted at their BBC office in Delhi. On The Habit Coach, Ashton helps you get a perfect answer to the question, who do we work for? On Storytellers and Storysellers, Vineet hosts actors Madhyama and Chayan from Netflix's hit series Class. They spoke about how they prepared for their roles and working with Ashim Ahluwalia. And on Vartalab, Akash and Naveen talked to Anshu Patni, CEO Mythoverse Studio and podcaster. They speak about parenting, home culture, and Anshu and Akash's days working together. Once again, don't forget to visit our merch store on ivmpodcast.com. We have some exciting stuff for you over there. Follow us on social media via IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. If you like our shows, spread the word. Tell your friends and don't forget to rate and review us wherever you're listening to us. You'll also find all our shows on youtube.com/IVM Podcasts. And finally, we would like to thank our sponsors this week, Yono SBI, Cash Free Payments, and HDFC Mutual Fund. Thank you for making this possible.
Hello and welcome back. Thank you sponsor जो भी था मुझे पता नहीं कौन था but thank you anyway.
Louis Vuitton तो definitely नहीं है मैं बता दूँ.
शायद यार.
Don't
देख सकते हैं.
underestimate us. I have a very fascinating question here.
Oh,
which I
can't
think,
wait.
Yes, we are going into the deep recesses of this chapter where there is this very fun question on the side which says, can you explain the following terms? Majority, ruling party, opposition with reference to your state. Please, Priyanka, go on.
I think I touched upon it 15 minutes ago.
Yeah.
But I must say this. मुझे ना whenever I speak about majority, government, opposition, आपको याद है प्रमोद महाजन जी जो बीजेपी के लीडर थे उन्होंने एक बार ये स्पीच दी थी पार्लियामेंट में भी कि majority numbers हमारे पास हैं पर हम opposition में हैं, something like that. तो क्योंकि बीजेपी has changed the rules of the game and we have seen that more minority governments get majority and they are in power. तो मेजॉरिटी वो होती है जहाँ पे एमएलएज ज़्यादा होते हैं और एमएलएज की संख्या जो है अगर सरकार बनानी है तो द नंबर्स हैव टू बी हाफ ऑफ द टोटल नंबर ऑफ सीट्स इन द स्टेट. सो महाराष्ट्र हैज़ 288 सीट्स असेंबली सीट्स. 288 MLAs are elected. Now those MLAs could be from any political party. So whichever political party gets the not majority of the seats, gets the majority of numbers of seats, which are half of
halfway mark,
which
is 144.
Which is 144. They get to form the government. If they fall short of those numbers, they look for alliances, or if they have pre-poll alliances, they form a government.
Right.
What happened in Maharashtra was that there was a pre-poll alliance. Pre-poll alliance also comes on the basis of some understanding that two political parties have reached. If you breach those understanding, the pre-poll alliances also stand to break.
Right.
So we saw a pre-poll alliance break, which was Shiv Sena and the BJP. And Shiv Sena, which I belong to, we had the second highest numbers of MLAs. And we formed an alliance with the Congress party and the NCP.
Correct.
Which perhaps was not a heard of combination in this country or the state, but it came about because we gave priority to democracy and the constitutional principles.
Right.
Constitutional principles being that you keep equality, liberty, etc., justice, etc., above everything else. And you're seeing a huge amount of hate, divisiveness, hate crimes, etc. rise in the nation. We decided we will go as per the constitutional principles and come up with a governance model, which was pretty successful.
Yeah.
And I would say that during that 2.5 years of COVID, 2 years of COVID, with our government in power, we managed to overcome that. And Maharashtra won accolades not just from grudgingly by the health ministry in India, but also globally. But 2 months ago, those equations changed. We saw a split in the Shiv Sena. So political parties split too. And we've seen a split. And that particular faction which has split has gone and aligned with the Bharatiya Janata Party.
Yeah.
Now one must understand, again, it's very complicated for the children to understand. But I must tell them, the Bharatiya Janata Party had the highest number of MLA seats.
Right.
It is,
but not the majority.
106.
106. 106, and they needed 40 odd numbers to compensate and form a government, which they have done now. Now your children, I mean, whoever your listeners are, they will also be very interested to know this, that while they have 106 MLAs, they have made a chief minister who has lesser number of MLAs.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And they are the deputy chief minister is someone who has 106 MLAs with him, and the chief minister is someone who has 50 MLAs.
50
Right.
MLAs.
So this is the combination right now.
He has 40, right? Right
40
now.
plus 10 independents.
10 independents, right?
Yeah,
right.
so 40 from Shiv Sena, from the parent party, and they have formed a breakaway faction. That is also, this government is also under a cloud because we have approached the Supreme Court. Because every political party is also bound by the 10th schedule of the Constitution. And they have to. Anti-defection law also kicks in. Election
Wait, what's the
Commission.
10th schedule of the Constitution?
So basically, anti-defection law, what it says is that if more than 2/3 of the MPs defect at the same time from a party, they're allowed to do that.
Okay.
But if it's less than that, you can't leave the party. You will get suspended from the party.
No, in addition to that, there's the 10th schedule of the Constitution, which totally identifies a political party being
of
different
course.
from a so legislative party and the parliamentary party.
Right.
So the political party will decide who their legislative party leader will be.
Oh.
So the head of the political party will decide who's the head of the legislative party.
Right.
Will also decide who's the head of the parliamentary party.
Right.
Yeah.
So political parties above your legislative party
Sure.
and political party.
So in
Correct.
this case, Mr. Uddhav Thackeray would be the one taking a call on
yes.
who is the legislative party who can use the banner of Shiv Sena.
Yes, yes.
That is
And
the
that was totally defied
Right.
under this anti-defection idea.
Yeah.
And that is why we've challenged it in the Supreme Court. And
Right.
now it's gone into a constitutional bench. 5 judges will take a call on this on 27th of September.
Oh.
And
That's a month
so,
away,
so this government can also fall,
Wow.
and anti-defection law will be challenged because political party has been bypassed
Right.
to try and do this
Right.
activity.
It's interesting. I was looking up at so there is this there's this very another fun exercise here. Construct a table similar to the one given in Himachal Pradesh. Here they are like Indian National Congress, Bharatiya, other political parties, independent. So when I looked up on Wikipedia actually, when I looked up what is happening in Maharashtra, right?
You shouldn't trust Wikipedia. It's
I
got
know,
my
I know.
age wrong.
And
जब तक छोटी थी तब तक ठीक था. अब उम्र बढ़ा दी मेरी. So yeah, that should also be a lesson.
So on Wikipedia right now, if you go, you will see Shiv Sena brackets mein rebel, and there is another Shiv Sena which is a part of the UPA/MVA, which is 16 MPs, right? Sorry, MLAs. It's very fascinating to see this because again, it's bizarre now. I mean, Shiv Sena is, what is it exactly? You tell me, what is it exactly?
Shiv Sena is a party which has 16 MLAs, has seen a defection of 40 MLAs who stand to be disqualified.
They are not Shiv Sena anymore.
They aren't Shiv Sena because that has been challenged. Whatever is happening, again, I will continue to repeat because this particular case is very relevant to the times we are living in and will impact the constitutional morality and democracy as principles, the democratic principles as we follow. So Supreme Court judgment on this will be extremely important.
Of course.
Because this goes to show how political parties function. So tomorrow in the BJP, let's say there are 3 contenders for the Prime Minister post-Modi era. And those 3 break away with their own people. Will they be the owners of the BJP?
That's true. That's actually an
It's a
interesting
dangerous
way to put it.
precedent that will
That's
be
a
set
dangerous
if-
precedent.
yeah.
So tomorrow, Himanto Biswa Sarma, who moved from Congress to the BJP, can, take all his MLAs, 40, whatever MLAs that he has and says, I am the BJP.
Right.
Or in the state, at least in the state, he's the BJP.
Right.
In Madhya Pradesh, you have, let's say, the chief minister saying, sorry, we are the BJP, this is a fraud BJP.
Ah.
Doesn't work like that.
That's true.
You will have to maintain the principles of a political
Yeah.
party.
Otherwise, everything just collapses, right? I mean, it's-
Everything collapses then there is no discipline.
Wow.
So
That's
why would you want to why would you get voted into that particular election symbol from that election symbol? If you can just pick up 40 MLAs, pay them money, whatever, instill that fear of ED आ जाएगा, IT आ जाएगा, CBI आ जाएगा, सब आ जाएगा, तुम्हारी जान ले लेगा, तुम्हारे बच्चों को ले जाएगा,
Right.
तुम्हें kidnap कर लेगा.
Is this what's usually
नहीं
used
मैं
to-
बस बोल रही हूँ.
Yeah.
There'll be new techniques ना.
Right.
New
To
techniques,
coerce them to
Yeah.
to do these things.
Yeah, resort
Wait,
politics.
I'm really interested in that. Can you tell me more about what these techniques are?
So-
or what have you heard?
So what we have seen this.
We have seen, yeah.
Suddenly, all the opposition MLAs, leaders are targeted under the Enforcement Directorate.
Yes.
Enforcement Directorate is also now all powerful. They perhaps come. Once you unleash a monster, I don't call ED monsters. Okay, they're not. But some ideas, the concepts that are being introduced as of now, because it brings more power to you, it concentrates power. You've given them so much teeth that they're going to come back and bite you.
That was another legislation that was recently passed.
Yes,
yeah.
in the Supreme Court,
Yeah.
upheld a lot of PMLA, clauses that are there, which again Supreme Court is reviewing. But the point is that these are known techniques, right? There's money, there is ED, there is IT, there is CBI. And if you look at the pattern, it only goes to opposition MLAs, MPs.
Right.
And this idea that यही सब corrupt हैं और हम सब साफ सुथरे हैं. अगर यही सब साफ सुथरे हैं, then how is it that there are very few people getting richer in this country and poorer are getting poorer in this country? How does this work? There are only couple of drivers, 2 or 3 odd drivers who are driving India's GDP growth story.
Correct.
Which is true.
It's ridiculous.
This is not how wealth is created.
Yeah.
Wealth generation and wealth is created when multiple sources contribute to the nation's income.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's not happening.
Yeah.
And those are things which everyone should think about. Those are things we should be challenging and questioning.
Speaking of which, Mr. Third Richest Man Adani, if you want to sponsor this episode.
No, you know what? I veto that. Louis Vuitton is what I want to stick to. I'm not.
Guys, please, I mean, like, that will be funny as hell if Adani sponsors this episode.
No. I'm vetoing
you know who brought Louis Vuitton into India? It's an Indian only. So
She's still stuck with Louis.
please be good to everybody, right? Let's all respect our wealth creators.
Yes.
You know what? If I was a 7th grade student and if I was given a 5-mark question for explain what's happening in Maharashtra, I'll jump from the window.
That's actually true because, you know, Priyanka...
No, what they should write is whatever is happening is immoral and goes against my civics chapter.
Oh, wow.
Simple.
That's actually very interesting, but then teacher will be like, hut.
You know what?
Mark देंगे.
I can imagine at
नहीं,
least...
teacher कहेगी वो तो points ये लिखे हुए थे ना तुम्हें ये लिखना था.
हाँ, exactly.
So you're going against the textbook.
Yeah,
I
rules.
can imagine at least 4 students listening to this and failing their exams because they
So don't like this. You don't listen to politicians. I'm sorry.
And then they will show the video to the teacher saying, देखो actual
इन्होंने
member
तो ये
of
कहा
parliament ने बोला है कि ये लिखना है तो मैंने लिख दिया. Who is better? You as an authority, member of parliament or classroom teacher?
Kids, you must follow the civics chapter.
Yes.
And whatever else is just an offshoot of political scenarios that play out.
But also question your teacher about
This
this.
is how it should be. This is how it should be.
Yeah. But also, like, you should question your teachers, your parents, and tell them that, listen, this is what our chapter has written here. But दिख रहा है कुछ और ही हो रहा है basically. You should actually ask them these questions.
Yeah, that do we need to relook at our election norms? Do we need to relook at how we thought government should run? That is something you can debate.
Absolutely.
And I think children should be given this space, at least in a civics, when they're discussing civics, to debate this.
Yes.
And
And
you may
to
come
be-
up with ideas which are brilliant.
To be completely fair, the civics chapter actually gives enough opportunities now to actually do this.
Exactly.
They have like exercises like you have to make like a board with your problems there and who will solve it. How will you approach the MLA to solve this? It's very interesting.
And you don't
how
even need to approach the MLA in certain issues. You can approach your local councillor.
local counselor. Yeah,
That is
absolutely.
very important.
Yeah.
You know, many times people just approach because they've got access to XYZ and then they don't realize that particular work does not come in the domain
Right.
of a member of parliament or member of legislative assembly. But people don't understand that.
Right.
You know, sometimes I find it very difficult to tell them this doesn't come under my domain.
Do people call you saying कि ओ घर पे electricity चला गया please चालू कर दो?
No, I don't get these calls. But one day I did get a very strange request saying that BMC has announced कि yoga classes शुरू कर रहे हैं. तो आप गोरेगांव में गोरेगांव is where my office is. आप बताओ teachers के लिए मैं कहाँ apply करूँ? And I had just returned from my parliament session. I had no idea that BMC had announced something like this. So I tried explaining to the person that no, this is not my domain, but I will find out for you.
Yeah.
So she's like, बड़ा office बना कर रखा है, ये भी आपको पता नहीं है. And she was very annoyed with me. And then I actually called up the ward officer. I said, can you please explain? Can I send her to you so that you can explain it better to her? Maybe she'll genuinely contribute to this cause.
Right.
So those are things which happen, which I think it's part of everyone's life. I don't get a call about electricity and all that. People are now quite aware.
Yeah. No, they aren't. But also, this is actually a big problem that all of my MPs have faced, right? Which is, they can't say no. Like, she has to be kind to that person and say, Acha, okay, this is not my domain. And then she'll get angry. And then you'll be like, no, I'll do it. I'll still do it. Because obviously, you're in a public-facing job. And literally, whether they're happy with you or not,
And
it
today,
depends on
these
it.
days, video journalism is so active. They'll hear the partial part of it where she's screaming
Yes,
at,
correct.
screaming out at me.
Yeah.
इसमें मेरी problem भी नहीं थी, मुझे डांट पड़ रही है,
Yeah.
and I'm speaking in a particular way कि ये
Yeah.
मेरा काम नहीं है.
Yeah.
So we have to be very careful about that too. So those are few things which.
But it's also the job of a citizen to sort of know where to ask what questions.
But as a citizen, how do I know what?
This is
Civics.
how you know.
Civics पे ध्यान दो.
Literally, our podcast is about that. Shreyas.
I forgot where we were. The setup. I forgot.
There's one interesting line I'll read out from here. The political party that has the majority is called the ruling party, and all other members are called the opposition. I have a problem with this term, ruling party.
हाँ उसको करना चाहिए. कर्तव्य निभाओ.
कर्तव्य निभाओ.
कर्तव्य
कर्तव्य पथ
बना है ना,
yes,
तो
yes.
राजपथ से हटाकर कर्तव्य पथ बना, तो क्योंकि those are very colonial terms as per
Ruling party
हाँ,
and all.
ruling party से कह दो
Governing party.
हाँ
Governing party would be
हो
nicer,
सकती
no?
है. हाँ, I think those
I'm going to start a movement through this podcast.
change.org पे
Change.org क्या करेगा, मतलब YouTube पे शुरू कर देते हैं. तो like I'm saying that whenever you say ruling party, it is a loaded term.
Yeah.
They're not our rulers.
हाँ.
You're not my ruler.
Absolutely
No.
not.
You're governing the country,
Yes.
and you're a part of the government structure,
Yeah.
and I think you should be referred to as
हाँ.
that, right?
Party in government.
Yeah, governing party, government में party, etc. This whole ruling party thing needs to go.
Absolutely. I agree.
Absolutely. But it's important to catch ourselves also when we are using these terms, right? My ex-boss, Abhinandan, he gets very triggered. He has made me record entire videos again because I use the term ruling party.
नहीं अच्छी बात है. If you yourself are conscious about what you're saying, then that becomes everyday lingo also for people who are listening to you.
Absolutely.
So that's important.
Yeah, and so civics book, please don't do this. Please, governing party कर दो इसको. Thanks. I know you listen to me. Okay, so I am going to read another part of this. This is the next page, which is 33. After the elections, the MLAs belonging to the ruling party will elect their leader, who will become chief minister. Right, so they're giving an example of Himachal Pradesh, where they say, in this case, the Congress party MLAs chose Veerbhadra Singh as their leader, and he became chief minister. I want to ask you this: this doesn't happen anymore, right?
So
You have to be very careful about this. I know.
No, careful. I would say that yes, there could be this idea that legislative assembly members will choose who their leader would be. And that is how ideally it should be. But more or less, considering even within the political parties, let's say in this particular case in Himachal Pradesh, Congress party.
Yeah.
Right. The example is Congress party. Within Congress party, there could be 3-4 sides to it. And you cannot seem to be upsetting all the 3-4 sides. Let's say, if there are 40 MLAs, 10 MLAs from each group have been elected. So who becomes the chief minister in that case?
But that is where the conversation comes in, right? Where in the party, then there will be a conversation where they would come to like a, what is it called? The compromise candidate. I feel like that should happen.
The situation is such where by the time you begin the conversation, 30 MLAs would have been broken up. That's also very opposition party these days. So you don't have time. Do you remember what happened in Goa? Right?
Yes.
It was such a strange case that Congress had got more MLAs, but by the time they could get into a conversation with the alliances, but that night I don't know what happened. The second largest party, which was the Bharatiya Janata Party, they went and claimed that they had enough numbers to form the government, and they continue to be in government. So again,
it's like a theatre of the absurd. It makes no sense.
It's just getting like fastest finger first. Who knocks the governor's door first with the numbers? So that I think, yes, that's debatable. That's something we can do. But I think we need to really relook, like these instances, whether it happened in Arunachal Pradesh, on the basis of which they continue to do these defections. Arunachal Pradesh was one of the case in point. Where they continue to, decide that this is how. So we saw this in Bihar, where Lok Janshakti Party was broken. We've seen this technique applied everywhere. So we really need to talk about this, and I think civics would be the right format, right place to have the serious discussion, not with the students perhaps, but with the parents. That is this how you would want your children to go and vote, and the vote becomes null and void.
Precisely, right? And even the fact about coalition governments, for example, right? And I am a big believer in coalition governments because
Yes.
I feel like when the government is not working and useless, I think that's the best case scenario. Because, I mean, if you have like a very efficient quote unquote majority government who is doing everything, the citizens is like, हाँ तो तुम करो ना, हम क्या करेंगे? But when it's a useless government, which is in coalition, which I also discussed with Omar and he disagrees with me, just say. But if it's a useless government in coalition, which is like inter-party and inter-conversation में इतना time लग रहा है कि decision making is very slow, right? The citizens are like, यार इनसे तो कुछ हो नहीं रहा है तो हम ही करेंगे अभी. I feel like that's best.
कौन कर रहा है? I mean, come on.
करना चाहिए.
It is very interesting to say. I would say there should be a right balance.
Yeah.
And coalition, why I am pro-coalition is because in a coalition, all stakeholders can be heard. India is a very
Precisely.
diverse nation.
Precisely.
And there are several regional parties, and regional parties have only emerged because national parties have been unable to cater to every single region.
Yes.
Right? So regional parties are actually the aspirational voices of those particular states because they're working closely on the ground.
Correct.
And if you have stakeholders from various areas, various parts of the country who are part of your coalition government, then perhaps you have this ability to debate, engage and discuss and decide. But when you have the single party majority, and India has seen the single party majority which can take you into emergency also.
Right. Yes,
Correct.
And you're now seeing a single party majority which is taking it towards an undeclared emergency.
Right.
We are living that. And I think our history lessons will teach us that there are ways of
Right.
having emergency or having
Without it
your
being
rights
declared.
controlled.
Yes.
Yeah.
And being reminded of your duties constantly, which is a good thing. We should remember our duties more than our rights. But at the same time, there has to be a balance. So coalition, for me, the coalition idea would always be that all stakeholders are heard. And civil society also is taken into consideration and their voices are equally important. For them to not be able to come and say that, let's just go and protest because nobody's hearing us. They need to be part of the conversation.
Right.
That's what I was coming to. So, like, I mean, this conversation bit which you just said, right? So, for example, a juvenile justice bill comes in, right? Where conversations become very important. Like, I don't mind a Motor Vehicles Act being considered for 8 years until we get the law right.
Absolutely.
And that is where the conversations come in. And that is why I think coalition governments for me are important. When I say decision making is slow and everybody thinks, impatient people think that this is useless, it's actually very useful.
Yeah, yes, absolutely.
Because you are in a way, by getting so many stakeholders and so many viewpoints involved in a particular policy making project, I think you are actually removing a lot of future problems that might come up. Like, तुम अगर एक बिल लेके आ रहे हो राज्यसभा में, for
मैं
example.
आपको एक एग्जांपल अभी दे देती
हाँ,
हूँ.
बोलो.
I think all adults, if they can vote at 18, whether it's men or women, they should be able to marry at 18. Take that decision.
Yeah.
That's their choice.
Yeah.
That's their choice. I mean, I'm not forcing them to marry at 18, but give them that choice. But today, if we stand at a point where men will marry at 21, women will marry at 18. Now you're trying to change it from 18 to 21. So one day you go announce कि महिलाओं की उम्र 18 से 21. Have you asked anybody? Have you spoken to various groups? Have you spoken to those girls who live in rural constituencies who have to traverse a long mile to reach higher schools? Why are they dropping out of higher schools? Because you haven't been able to provide them a higher school in their districts.
Correct.
And it's a very interesting point you bring up, because in India, right, especially with marriage, the customs are so wild and varied. Like if you go to like Meghalaya or somewhere, their customs will be completely different versus a tribal area, versus like in Chennai, versus in Bombay, versus in say a Kashmir. So when you say, have you asked anyone, that is where people get very annoyed. I feel, like where they're like, किसको पूछेंगे? Like, कितने राय पूछेंगे? Like, अरे मैं किधर जाएगा? So what do you expect me to do? Go to Chennai and ask a woman, then go to Kashmir and ask a woman, then go to like Meghalaya and ask a woman,
Yes.
and then decide? Yes, the answer is yes. That's what I was coming to.
I think those bills that bring a long-standing transformational change in societies. This is going to impact every home.
Yes, yes.
So then those can be deliberated, discussed and decided. Don't just come and announce 18 to 21, because in my head, I think it's the best idea to have
I
happened.
know.
Yeah.
Many people ask me, what is your problem with it? I said my problem with it is plenty. If you have provided, high school or university, higher education facilities to a girl child within her district, where she doesn't have to traverse miles and miles or leave her home to be able to study, you've given her affordable education. You've given her options within her, area of comfort. You've given her those safety, security.
Correct.
For her to believe that she can go achieve her dreams. Then I'd be happy to do this.
Right.
Precisely.
You're not answering the question which is at the core of our problem. So create ecosystems, right? So that is my point of view.
Right.
And more educated women would marry later.
Absolutely.
yeah.
And I must tell you, average age of Indian women marrying, average. Of course, we heard, spurt of child marriages happen. Child marriages happened during the COVID period. But if you look at the average age of a woman marrying is 21.5 in India right now.
Right.
So why do you need to bring in legalities into it?
Yeah.
Let it just, emerge on its own,
Correct.
evolve on its own.
Correct.
So that is my personal belief, and you can also maybe that push is coming from urban areas or from areas which are 2-tier cities, 3-tier
Right.
cities. We just need to pull up our those constituencies which are not in that belief.
Correct.
We just need to pull them up, right? So that is what you do. That is an effort, of
Yeah.
course, but do it.
I have one final point for you to sort of come to, right? And this is very interesting, this part which Shreyas also pointed out. So this is a part about working of the government, right? It says, the Legislative Assembly is not only place where opinions are expressed about work of the government and action is demanded. You will find newspapers, TV channels and other organizations regularly talking about the government. In a democracy, there are various ways through which people express their views and also take action. Let us look at one such way. Soon after the discussion in the assembly, there was a press conference organized by the health minister. Large number of people went from different newspapers there, etc., and asked the official a question. As a member of parliament, are you allowed to hold press conferences as you? Would you ever do this? Like, so for example, you do a forum, I'm pretty sure you do public forums right now. Would you do like press conferences yourself?
Representing my political party views?
Yes.
My political party
But
views.
also like your just larger constituency, I guess, which is Maharashtra. And
Yes.
you have picked one constituency.
Yes.
Why do you think other people don't do it? Other people, you mean like other
No,
people?
I think most of them do it. Most of them through their local channels or the constituency that they are catering to. I think most of the members of parliament are doing it. I wouldn't know about other states, but in Maharashtra, the MPs and MLAs are pretty active, and the
Yes.
the love for media is now increasing with every passing day, right? The question here, this is such an ideal chapter of governance, and this is how governance should be. And don't think there could be any other way of governance. The jokes apart, and whatever jokes I've been cracking at the expense of the political narratives that are emerging. As far as the civics is concerned, that yes, after you have answered and deliberated, discussed in the assembly, you come out and explain what happened in the assembly.
For sure.
That there was this opposition, and this is what our presentation was, and this is what we've gone and done. But what we have here is, so you go to the health minister and you say, Maharashtra saw few numbers of vaccines that they were talking about, shortage of vaccine. So they will say, oh, ये लोग सिर्फ आरोप लगाते हैं मोदी जी के अंतर्गत हमने इतनी सारी वैक्सीन सब पूरी देश में भेजी हैं, हम विदेशों में भेज रहे हैं. प्रॉब्लम महाराष्ट्र जेन्युइनली आपको आंकड़े देकर कर रहा है कि नहीं आ रही है. इतनी पॉपुलेशन है, इस संख्या में नहीं आ रही है.
Right.
आप 40 देशों में भेज रहे हो. That is not an answer.
That's not an answer. Yeah, absolutely.
That's not an answer.
That's actually the opposite of an answer there. It's like कि फिर मत भेजो ना उधर.
हाँ, exactly. मैं कहूँगी तो मत भेजो. पहले यहाँ पे करो. आप इलेक्शन से होकर आए हो, विदेश से नहीं होकर आए हो. एक होता है. So these are kind of things which need to be addressed, like I said, above your politics. As part of government. तो सरकार तुमने बनाई है. एक political party होती है जो सरकार चला रही है, जिसको नंबर मिले, आंकड़े मिले, जनता ने उनको जवाब दिए.
Correct.
तो as a government, who should be answering this? That is the line we've blurred. The government and political party have become synonymous.
Precisely what I was
So
saying.
a BJP spokesperson cannot come and talk about governance policies or what the government is doing, because it's a collective.
Correct.
It has its alliance partners too. So there should be, I saw this in UK, where ministers have their spokespersons and they come and do the talking, even if it's on a television channel, to debate on a particular subject. For example, external affairs. External affairs does their briefings very frequently in India, at least. We've seen that. They're very prompt. The same way when they come on television channels, if television channels, by the way, are talking external affairs seriously, like a BBC or something. Right now, we're just debating Hindu-Muslim. China नहीं कम करते हैं, Pakistan ज़्यादा करते हैं because
Pakistan.
it's easier to
Yes.
Yeah.
bash them up. Or Sri Lanka,
Yeah.
it's easier to talk about, oh, listen, this is what we're doing. But the point is, if you're seriously discussing, there should be a government representative on that particular discussion. So BJP can put its point of view. A BJP spokesperson, a Congress spokesperson, or Shiv Sena can put their points of view as political parties.
Correct.
But government's view does not necessarily mean
Correct.
BJP.
Absolutely.
I see what you mean.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think if we can do that, if we can alienate these two, then we'd be doing a huge service to our civics chapter as well.
Yeah.
That's actually not a bad idea. And also, like, then the difference is also made clear, right? Where, say, for example, like the crisis that happened in Maharashtra about the government, right? Of course, there are overlaps. But then, like, Shiv Sena's stand versus the government stand would be different. Then,
Yes.
right? So you ask the government ki, boss, theek hai, tumhara government abhi gir raha hai, like, you know, whatever. But like this work that was started in my constituency, what will happen to that? Now that a government can answer. But then, like, when you are saying that, oh, tumhara ye MLA is udhar chala gaya, that is a question that a Shiv Sena can answer.
Absolutely.
Maybe that distinction needs to be clearer there.
Yes, where governance is not impacted by political activities around government formation and opposition.
I mean, it's dependent on each other also in a large way, but I mean, I get your point. I get
yeah,
that,
but,
right?
no, because I have made this distinction very clear that when I speak, I'm speaking as part of Shiv Sena,
Correct.
Sure.
which was in the government, along with the Congress and the NCP.
Right.
So Congress may have a differing point of view on this, and that is the beauty of coalition, I
Yeah.
must say, that you may differ on various ideas, but you have to, converse, engage, cooperate, and come to some conclusion. The
Yes.
3 C's.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
So I may have a differing point of view
Yeah.
from my alliance partner.
That's
the
better,
unfortunate
yeah.
part now also is that coalition governments have become something like the yes men. So if you are in coalition with the BJP, you must keep nodding your head at everything that the Prime Minister is saying. Don't do that.
Yeah.
And that was one very interesting aspect when I came to the Shiv Sena, where, I said that, we're talking about BJP would be a little, out of context for me.
Yes.
Honestly,
Yeah.
we are. And the beauty of that was that, our leadership said that even Samna, which we are in alliance, we have identity of our own. We will speak up on ideas we believe in.
Correct.
We can be in an alliance.
Which is a party stand.
Yeah, we can largely agree with
Sure.
what they're doing, but we can have our disagreements. And Samna has been, even while in alliance
Yes.
with the BJP, has been critical of them and whatever they were doing, which was wrong. So it's very important to have a political party stance versus what you are doing in the government.
Right. Absolutely.
Can you tell me a little bit, and promise this is the last question, I know you have to go. Can you tell me the difference between working with a national party versus a regional party a little bit? Because you went from a national party to a
Yes.
regional party.
So in the national party, I think because it's such a varied section of people that you're addressing to, that your answers seem to be very generic, right?
Right.
You're talking about democracy, constitution, etc., etc. You're not being very state specific or issue specific. So an issue which is impacting Maharashtra may perhaps not impact in Odisha, or
Correct.
Jammu and Kashmir's issues would
Sure.
be totally different, and the local issues are extremely different. In regional party, I got a chance to work on ground. B, also to be able to create a narrative for a regional party, be part of a narrative building process, communication. So communication is more local, more related to people who are working on ground and policies that impact people on ground.
More decentralized?
I would say more
in a way?
decentralized and more being able to take stakeholders along.
Sure.
So that has been a very powerful difference, which I feel that you're catering to a smaller area, but you're catering to their needs and requirements. The debates on national channels is so open, generic. हम चाइना की बात कर लेंगे, हम पाकिस्तान की बात कर लेंगे, हम क्रिकेट की भी बात कर लेंगे, मैं बॉलीवुड की भी बात कर लेती थी, मैं अभी भी करती हूँ. but ये जो issues हैं, जैसे कुछ citizens को impact कर रहे हैं, हम उसकी बात कर लें तो ज़्यादा ठीक रहेगा. I get a chance to work with them, and that I think is, I would say, a more meaningful change.
Are you happier?
Definitely. I mean, don't I look happier, sound
Yeah,
happier?
you do look happier and sound happier. But I hope you do great work as a member of parliament.
Thank you so
I
much.
follow your work closely. I know.
Thank you.
And there are very few people, I think, in the parliament right now who are trying trying, I would say, and I feel like you're one of those. Stats to dekh liye humne
देख
already.
लिए यार, numbers देख लिए.
Numbers dekh liye. But thank you so much, Priyanka, for doing this
Thank
with
you
us.
so much.
I hope you enjoyed this.
I really enjoyed it, and I'm glad you did not ask me the questions of my presence in the parliament. वो इसलिए कर गया क्योंकि मुझे suspend कर दिया गया था, वो भी arbitrarily.
Oh, so should we ask you that now?
हो गया. वो मैं रोज उसके बारे में बोल रही थी. I was in the parliament premises, but I was not allowed to attend the parliament.
In 50 seconds, can you just...
So basically, again, I was opposing a privatization bill that had come up for insurance
yes.
companies to be privatized.
Right.
And there are a huge amount of people that they employ there came as part of a revised list of business on the last working day of the parliament monsoon session.
Right.
We all were up in arms that you can't do this. You cannot pass a bill within 5-10 minutes. This has to be deliberated. And it was already decided. I'm speaking fast because I want to complete it in 50 seconds. Understand? But हमने कहा ये last day पे आप क्यों ला रहे हैं? We can discuss it in the winter session after everybody has discussed it. But they were in such a hurry. They passed it while there was opposition din. Everyone was screaming. Unfortunately, our televisions totally edit out those parts where we are opposing.
Oh, really?
Something like this. Absolutely. They just go
They
off
do.
air.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
They just discontinue the coverage. And so it did get a bit, rough down there in the well of the house. And the next session, again, unconstitutional, unheard of. The next session, the first day of the next session, beginning of the parliament, I was suspended for the entire winter session.
Yeah.
For opposing the insurance bill earlier, which was privatized. We are selling off everything, all our assets, and if we cannot discuss that as opposition, then I might as well be suspended and speak outside and speak inside. So I'm sure that's why you did not raise my parliamentary
Now you know.
But that would also be 100% because I was 100% present in the
I
parliament.
did see the 100% thing for monsoon, winter. One of
I
the
have
winter
attended
sessions.
all
Monsoon
the
session,
sessions 100%.
Yes.
Except for that one session where they silenced my voice.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for asking the question yourself and answering it.
I was like, ये क्यों नहीं पूछा मुझसे?
I knew the answer. I thought
but that's a very important part, I would say, of the conversation for civics.
Yes,
that parliamentarians and MLAs can be suspended too.
Yeah. Oh, of course, yeah. And if you follow the news coverage of parliament, you will see every session कोई ना कोई तो suspend
हो ही जाता है.
अभी इतना normalize हो गया है कि अच्छा,
Is it
you're
like
not
अरे अब तो तुम्हें suspend नहीं किया.
Is it almost like a badge of honor? You're suspended if you're doing...
They used to tell me that the first day. You must see that clip because it became a meme. It became viral and people were like, "Khisyani billi khamba noche." But I was so disturbed because, like my sisters tell me, life में कभी school में suspend नहीं हुई, कभी school में डांट नहीं पड़ी, अब पूरे देश के सामने तुझे suspend कर दिया. How does it feel? And I came out with that rage. How could I get suspended? You messed up with my parliamentary career. But then I realized that there's a bigger job to do to continue to speak up. Yeah.
So we will end this episode here and this clip will play right after this. That is a bonus for you today. Thank you so much, Priyanka.
Thank you so much for having me over. Thank you.
Thank you, Shreyas.
Yes, of
I will
course.
see you in the next episode.
I'll see you then.
Yeah.
प्रियंका चतुर्वेदी, प्रियंका जी, आप लोग माफी मांगेंगे?
किस बात की माफी मांगूं? देश की जनता की आवाज उठाती हूँ उसके लिए माफी मांगूं, देश के किसानों की आवाज उठाती हूँ उसके लिए मांगूं, देश की महिलाओं के लिए उठाती हूँ उसके लिए मांगूं, प्रजातंत्र के लिए उठाती हूँ उसके लिए मांगूं. अगर मुझे सरकार बता दे किस बात के लिए मैं माफी मांगूं तो मुझे समझ में आए. पर अगर मुझे इसलिए सस्पेंड किया जा रहा है क्योंकि मैंने प्रखरता से अपनी आवाज उठाई है तो मुझे ऐसे 100 भी पनिशमेंट कबूल.
Hope you enjoyed Shiv Sena's existential crisis. That's what happened in this episode.
That's what happened. Can you believe it? I cannot.
I cannot either because I just saw it before recording this outro years later, I guess. And this is where we are, guys. I hope this season has been good for you so far. I hope episode 3 was great for you. Please keep listening to How to Citizen on different podcast platforms. We are also on the IVM website, ivm.com. And also, if you're watching this on our YouTube channel, please do consider subscribing.
Also, I recommend all the podcast platforms you're using, listen to this podcast on all those platforms. That's the real way to really understand this podcast. So do that. That's the suggested way of watching our podcast.
Thank you for listening.